Thursday, the 20th of November. This month has absolutely flown by. Thank God this week is nearly up, the international break, as much as there has been internationals on, and some of them have actually been quite good, to be fair. So look, this is the United Devil channel, a Man United fan channel with me, JB, of course. I hope we're all doing extremely well. So if you are new to the channel, get into it. We are the best on this platform. I know everyone says that they are, but we genuinely are the best. We may not be the biggest, but we certainly are the best. So get into the chat. The only thing that we say, first of all, when I start off the chat is be respectful to the community, be respectful to yourself, be respectful to me. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out. And of course, we don't like to do it. We absolutely don't. We don't mind banter. Have some amazing rival fans on here. So feel free to get in, even if you don't support this club. Your opinion is just as valid as mine. The reason why these shows take so long is because I genuinely do read out your chats. So get in there. So be careful what you say, because I genuinely do read out most of the chats. So that is where we are. So I hope we're all doing extremely well today. Let me know in the chat where you're from in the world. Get in there with your messages, and we will get on with the show today. Apologies, there was no show last night. I went out. I took my eldest out for something to eat. By the time I got back, I was just tired, and then I saw the little ones, and then I fell asleep. So yeah, such is the life of a dad working full time and trying to do this. So absolutely knackered. Wasn't really much going on yesterday, to be honest with you. Just regurgitation of the same old stuff. Mainoo, getting your opinions on Mainoo. I'd love to know what you think about that. Obviously, we've spoken about that. I'm not going to do that to death. Transfers, the day before yesterday, we went through why I don't think that we're going to sign any players, why I don't think that we have the money. Danny B says, morning, JB. Danny B, legend of the chat, my friend. I hope you're all doing extremely well. Danny, as I say, apologies for no show last night. The evening shows, I do lean towards those. Those are some of my favourite shows. But again, you guys are just fantastic. So let's talk about, I think we should talk about Zirkzee first. I think, look, this has probably been done to death, but I think it's worth us. DJ Darkest Night says, morning legends. You are a legend. 6:30 here, just getting out for work. Wow. Thank you. Commitment to the cause. Nikki T says, good morning, Nikki. I hope you're doing extremely well. You are. Darkest Night is absolutely right. You are legends, and legends of this chat and legends of this channel. You make this channel what it is, so thank you for that. So look, Zirkzee. Let's get what I want you guys to do is I want you to let me know your opinions on him. We can talk through the news, talk through some of the stats, and I think it's time to have a realistic conversation about him. I think, again, this could be another player that we've possibly failed. Mainoo as well, we'll get into that again as well. Look, Zirkzee and Mainoo, I think, are the keys for those who want other players to be signed. I think that depending on those two will tell you a lot. I don't think they go anywhere. We haven't seen enough of him yet. Danny, I think you're spot on, mate. I just don't think Amorim has these preconceived, I think, ideas about players that don't fit his system, players that he doesn't necessarily like. And again, with Mainoo, if Zirkzee doesn't get into a lot of these games and doesn't play a lot of these games that are coming up, we've got a run of 10 games in the next month. So if Zirkzee doesn't get a run in those games, then I think that the writing is on the wall. And we'll get into basically what I think about it. So Davey says he was started to come good last season, got injured, and he hasn't got a sniff yet. Exactly. So he started to come. Let's talk about that, right? So he started to come good towards the end of the season. when Ten Hag was in charge. It seems like such a long time ago now. So the end of last season, he sort of had that purple patch. Obviously, he was signed by Erik Ten Hag, and Erik Ten Hag sort of like the play. I mean, he's 24 years old. He's 24 and a half actually. Legend of the chat, Scott. Hope you're doing extremely well, my friend. He's 6'4". He's 6'4", 24, and for such a big guy, I actually think he's got really, really nimble feet. I don't think he's particularly quick, but when you're that big and that size, I think he could definitely be used. So look, this season he's played 90 minutes of football. So throughout all of the games that we've played, which I think is 11 games in now, he's played 90 minutes of football. So I think the writing is on the wall from that perspective. So look, I'll give you my opinion. You guys get your opinions in. Doesn't mean to say if I kind of you get your opinions in and then sort of I come back on that, doesn't mean I'm disrespecting the opinion. It just sparks off things in my head to talk about. So he hasn't played a lot this season. I think that Amorim doesn't rate him. I think in terms of number 10s, I think he is a number 10. You can certainly utilise him in that. I think that number 9 role. He's 6'4". He's 6'4". CR7 says, "Hi man, hello CR7. Hope you're doing extremely, extremely well." I would utilise him, and I think ultimately, when we talk about what United us, what is coming out from them, it's interesting. So look, 90 minutes of football, and I think ultimately that is the problem when you've got a World Cup coming up. I think ultimately that is one of the issues here for him, is that he wants to play. Now, when we look at players of the past, I get that it's a World Cup year. Now, I'm going to say this, and you give me your opinion on the modern football player, because I think the modern football player puts country over club. Now, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. That's my observation of, look, the club is your everyday and it pays your wage, right? And throughout the years, the litany of players that we've had at this club, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, John O'Shea, Park, DJ Darkest Night says Zirkzee and Mainoo. Let me just check something. Zirkzee and Mainoo would walk into most sides. That's good. That's fine. Slacking JB. Stephanie says morning JB, and the United Devil channel. I'm liking that, Stephanie. The UDC. It sounds like the UDC sounds like some sort of Marine Corps from like Aliens or something like that. It sounds like a sci-fi name for a sort of like an evil corporation, right? I am slacking, mate. I am. No, I'm not slacking. I've got my red on my team, so I'm absolutely free to do this today. So I'm asking you the question today. Now, as we saw with this World Cup stuff, right? You've got England who have qualified, Scotland who have qualified. We've got Ireland, Wales, and Northern Ireland in the draw for the semi-final of the playoffs to get to the World Cup. So, I think the World Cup is a spectacle. And I don't blame players for wanting to play in the World Cup. Now, as we see with the likes of Luke Shaw, as we see with a lot of these players, they want to get into the World Cup squad. Now, at what point, in my opinion, when is it right to play country over club? Now, as I say, I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, but my problem here is this. Over the years, litany of players that we've had, Nicky Butt, O'Shea, Park, Johnson at one point, Hennenberg, Hernandez, all these sorts of players who were first and foremost did get into the international team, but also Solskjaer is probably the biggest example of this, where the club came first. You know, they were more than happy to be not a bit part player. Well, they were bit part players, but they knew at some point in the season, towards the back end of the season, that they would get their chance. As Scott says, club comes first. The country has many players to choose from, and I do think the modern football player sort of wants it all. You know, when you're getting players, club comes first. After all, we pay their wages, and this is what my problem is with a Mainoo and a Zirkzee is. I think if they wait, they will get their chance. You know, we are. If we look at this from a logical perspective, right? We're going to lose 3 players, right? So we're going to lose Mbeumo, Ahmad, and Mazraoui, right? In those number 10 positions, he does. Scott, you've read my mind. It's on the list of stuff to talk about. Scott, it's almost like that you can see my notes, right? So I get that. I do get it, but I also believe being here is the best opportunity for them. You know, we're going to lose 3 players. Additionally, you know, you look at Mason Mount. Mason Mount is barely fit. So, you know, when we're talking about our number 10s, realistically, we've got Cunha. We've got Mason Mount, but he's barely fit. Fernandez and Kobe Mainoo can play there as well, and Zirkzee. So I think that if they bide their time, I do think they have an opportunity. Now, obviously, Mainoo got into the World Cup, well, the last Euro squad, and obviously he's been persuaded now that that's the be-all and the end-all. Niche fan, I will come back to that as well. So we now, instead of having a litany of players who want to play for the club, we have these players who now want to play for the country. So, you know, you've got Casemiro. You know, where was this Casemiro last year? Where was this Luke Shaw last year? You know, and now suddenly a World Cup here, and Luke Shaw has had probably the most, probably the best medical recovery in the history of football. I don't know another player like that who's been injured to that degree, who's played as little games as he has had for the time he's been here, and suddenly fit this season. Mason Mount, you know, again, at least he's true to form. So that's my argument to begin with, is that, you know, club over country, I think, as a debate, is it right or wrong? I don't know. My opinion on it is that I think that I'm old school. I think that your club should come first. You know, ultimately, as you guys have said, they pay the wages. You should be ultimately proud. I think that you can have both, right? I think you can have both. But I think when you play for this club, it's a different scenario. I think if you fight, I still think you get into most international teams because you're playing at the highest level. You can hold your own and your mentality is there. So I'm of the opinion that, look, whilst you can be proud to play for your club, I think that the club should come first. Stephanie said, Sir Alex Ferguson told these fringe players in advance which games that they would be playing. And I think you make a good point there. It's true. He did. You know, he would tell his players, like, you know, I'm going to use you in these games. Is this? And again, I'll come back. I'll hold my point because Niche Fan has made a comment, and I will come back to that. Steve Elsie says Southgate created the country over club attitude and let's have a cuddle, wear a waistcoat and punch the air mentality. I'm not going to disagree with that. Southgate was sort of Southgate. You know, he tried to. You know, you almost have the polar opposite, right? So you had Sven and Capello, who had a bunch of players who put their club first. You know, they were rivals not only in the Premier League, but sort of rivals, because if you listen to the likes of Lampard, Stevie G, which I find fascinating, you know, some of these ex-players do have some fascinating tales. How you'd have a Liverpool table, how you would have a United table, you know, how you would have a Chelsea table, right? So you've got that extreme whereby, you know, you had Lampard, Scholes, Stevie G. They couldn't play together because you couldn't get the balance right. And now you've got the polar opposite of that, where, as you say, you know, you had Southgate, who created a let's be mates, let's have a kiss and cuddle, you know. And I get it from an England perspective, but, you know, from a club versus the country thing, you know, Luke Shaw sort of always said that they looked forward to playing for England rather than playing for this club, because playing for this club is a battle. It's an absolute battle to play for this club. And as we know, which fits into what I've always believed of these players. They're low IQ, low mentality players. So then when they go to England, they then got that mentality that it's nice and safe, it's warm. Southgate gives them a hot cup of cocoa and everybody's friends. And this is what we've created here. But I will come back to niche fan as well. Napoli are becoming United if Mainoo goes there. So niche fan says, sack Amorim. I want Mainoo at this club no matter what. He's the future of our club and English football. Niche fan, look, mate, as we always say, you know, get in your opinions. It's your opinion, doesn't mean that you're wrong. That's your opinion. I've got a different opinion to that, and my opinion is this. The problem for me, and to sort of not come back on what you're saying, but I'll give you an alternative view here, is that if we do sack the manager, again, it's player power. You know, a player wins. What I'm going to say for me is this, is that no player is bigger than the club. No manager is bigger than the club. There are two things that go hand in hand with this club. Number one is this club will endure. This club is huge. This club has history, right? And second of all, the biggest building blocks and equal to the club are the fans. This club is not bigger than the fans. The club and the fans are intrinsically linked together. You don't have fans if you don't have a club, and you don't have a club if you don't have fans, right? So there is no player bigger than the fans. There is no ownership bigger than the fans. There is no player bigger than the fans, or manager bigger than the fans. So the problem for me, niche fan, is why I don't necessarily agree with that statement, is because if you sack the manager, one, it's a player power. I actually think Amorim is actually doing a good job with these players. Now, if you get Pep into the squad, do you think Pep would make Mainoo the focal point? I don't think he would. Pep couldn't come into the squad and turn it around, right? Do I think Pep could adapt? Possibly. I think he possibly could adapt. But I don't think anyone else could come into this squad and do much, right? So you're going to sack him. And then the reason for sacking him would be the Mainoo thing. Then as a club, how have we progressed in terms of then its player power? So for me, if this club and the manager, we can't use this player, we need to utilise Kobbie Mainoo in terms of a fee. If he's not going to play, and as you say, niche fan, he's going to be the future of this club, and he's going to be the future of England, and he's not playing because I know what Amorim is up to, and I will give another viewpoint on that as well. If, as you say, he's going to be the future, he needs to play. There's nothing wrong right now in loaning him out if he's not going to play, and if he's never going to play, we need the money. We need to go out and we need to invest in the squad. So look, I'm not disagreeing with your view. Conversely to that, look, Amorim, I want to know why Amorim doesn't fancy this player. Amorim, we have limited amount of games. Also, as well, to consider that the limited amount of games are impacting not just him, but the youth, are impacting the fringe players as well. It will also impact the transfers as well, because if we've only got one game a week and Sir Jim Champers thinks that this side can get to the Champions League, then we've got to factor in it's not just the coach. The coach is having an impact, but this club is as well. So look, Niche fan, I think you raise a good debate. I'm not going to talk about whether Amorim's days will go, but again, I think it's a very interesting opinion. Scott says, yes, they are, mate. We can't keep sacking managers just because he won't play. Sir Alex got the right balance when it came to club and country. I don't disagree. You're not 100% going to get in the England team because of the depth of each player in each position. Leo Heggie, hello, my friend. Need McTominay back, seeing the goals he's scoring. Hi, Scott. I know what you're saying, but Kobe will ultimately go down as being one of England's most cultured players in history. Amorim is just not a good manager. Sack the Dosser now. One of the things that I like about this, right, is that the minority opinion. And Niche fan, look, you're, again, I think you've got to have your opinion. This is the place, and I will read it out. It's interesting. It is interesting that you value Mainoo that much. I don't see it. The things I've seen of him, I like in glimpses. But my only not my comeback, but my only sort of observation here is that if Mainoo was that good, Bruno Fernandes, he would push him out of that position, or he'd be pushing Mason Mount out. We've got Mason Mount, who is basically injured, constantly injured. Why will a fully fit Kobe Mainoo, who's the Kobe Mainoo from the season that he came into the squad, why is that Kobe Mainoo not getting in as a number 10 or coming on as a number 10? Also, the Grimsby game, look, he's second. No, this is his third season. Why can't he get into this team, into the third season? Now, he's a professional into his third season. So the Grimsby game, he should have ran that. So I think in terms of the audition for Amorim once this season, I actually think he sort of failed that audition. Let me check. Sorry, guys. Let me just check this. Yeah. So let's go back to the chat. What do we say? H Mine says, "Hi everyone. United qualified. Have United qualified for the World Cup? I want Rashi back. We're not selling him. We will sell him. We will sell him. Rashford is not coming back. The only way Rashford comes back is if Rashford wants to be a wing back. I get it. I get why people want him back. He's not coming back. We don't need the wages on our books. Profit-wise, we need to rebuild. I think, Niche fan, we've moved on from Rashford. We've moved on from those days. We've moved on from the Sanchos, the Rashford, and I know people are not a fan of that, which I get, and I completely understand that. But I think if we want to progress as a club and get Champions League, we need to do something different. And I think bringing Rashford back doesn't do that. Also, he doesn't want to come back as well. So I think there is that. Scott said Rashford is a diva. He's a player that all about me, just Bruno. We don't need players like that. Why we got rid of Sancho, Garnacho, Rashford and Bruno will be next. I wonder if Barca will buy him at the end of the loan deal. McTominay gone now. He's amazing. Rashford gone. He's amazing. Anthony gone. He's amazing. Let's not make that mistake with Kobe. And again, Niche fan, I think you are in the minority here. again, I'm not. Again, we can talk about that. Morning, mate. Just on my break at work, says Herb 1234. Hello, my friend. McTominay has gone. He's proved that he's a fantastic player. So, I would agree on that one. Rashford gone. He's amazing. I think he's shown glimpses of being amazing. I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree with that statement, to be fair. I don't agree with that statement per se. And again, Rashford is one of those divisive players. I don't disagree if you think that he's an amazing player. I don't. Anthony, I would have to wholly disagree on that. When the manager that brought you through at your old club brings you in and then doesn't play you, I think that tells you everything that you need to know about play. So, look, again, people find their level. Anthony is a legend at his new club. He wasn't here. That's where we are. Dina says Pep could adapt, but the owners are still in place. Stephanie says, I agree, no player is bigger than the club, but with one expectation, the captain, and sometimes causes selection problems. I agree, Stephanie. I don't think the captain's bigger than the club. I don't think that's what you're saying here. The captain needs to be bigger than the captain needs to be as big as the players. The captain needs to be as big as the club. As I've said before on subject of this, is that there are two clubs, in my opinion, in English football where the captain has to be more. Liverpool and us. If you look at the history, the captain at those two clubs are more than a captain at Arsenal. And this is not a dig at anybody else, and this is just my opinion. Those two clubs, the captains have to be as big as the fans. They have to, at times, they have to be bigger than the fans because they have to inspire the fans. They have to, they have to embody the club. They don't have to support the club, but they have to embody what this club means. So I agree with you on that. Pep doesn't make teams he inherited. I agree. Kartik says, hello, how's it going, mate? I'm extremely well, and hope you are too. Pep would drop his captain if he's not up to speed. I agree with you. Good thing his leaks seem to have been plugged, but the leads, that leads to big speculations. Niche fan says, Mainoo would walk into the England team if he was playing. Our England first 11 should be Pickford, O'Reilly, Konsa, Guehi, James, Wharton, Mainoo, Bellingham, Palmer, Rashford, and Eze. Where's Kane? Where's Kane in all that? I would happily sacrifice Mainoo for an Anderson. I think Anderson is probably the best English kind of all-round centre midfielder right now. I think you're sleeping on Kane as well. I would have Rashford coming on. Steph, that's because Rashford and Sancho and Garnacho have left. I would love to know what Kobe's thinking himself. I would do. I would love to see the training. I'd love to know what it is about Kobe Mainoo. He doesn't get into the squad. Is it literally Amorim doesn't fancy the player? I suspect part of it is survival football as well. So, and again, look, part of the problem, which I think people sort of kind of miss this fact as well. We have no European football. We have no Carabao Cup. What's the manager supposed to do? He's found a team that have won some games. Have drawn 2. I've seen today that United apparently are in form, and that the next game, we're in form, so we should be okay. We've won 3, we've drawn 2. On paper, that sort of form, but the performances have been getting worse and worse and worse. So, look, I think Kobe gets his chance. I really, really do. Stefan said, when Mainoo emerged a few years back, the plan was for him to play alongside Casemiro, but then he got injured pre-season. Madrid tour, yes, he did. It seems that Mainoo's form is not good. Amorim doesn't want to play him. Milton, disappointed a couple of years. He was playing for England. It's because Amorim won't play Kobe in the correct position. Need to move on from Rashford. Best for both parties. I truly believe we need Europe next season. So many players need game time. I agree with you. We need it for game time for players. We need it for attraction of players as well. Doom Melly says, aren't you working today? Did you call in sick? No. I'm just so good at my job. I'm very efficient. No, I the job that I do allows me to do this. I sort of work for myself, so I kind of am able to move things around. God says Kobe doesn't get game time because we don't have enough games to rotate players. Why change the team week and week out when we get the results? Kartik says absolutely agree with Amorim on the lack of intensity comment. We can see how intensity fluctuates throughout the game, and we concede during those phases. Eric Ten Hag bringing in useless Dutch players. The club is still suffering. Anderson is really good play, but next summer there's going to be a World Cup tax, Premier League tax, British tax, and a United tax. Akif says, hello, bro. How you doing? I'm doing extremely well. So the main news side, we'll come back onto that. So look, Zirkzee, the way that it is now is that United's rhetoric on Zirkzee is that Zirkzee is not going anywhere. There's a Roma loan. West Ham is out there as well. Do I think it's right? I still think that the message coming out from this club will be there's no value in the market. I don't think they want to do a loan because I don't think a loan does anything for the club. I think what they want is value. I think what they want is players to be sold. I think they're going to use that money to buy players. A loan, I don't think moves the needle enough in terms of, let's just say Zirkzee goes to Roma. We know Šeško is out for a couple of weeks. When Šeško comes back, is he going to get another, a knee problem? Because it kind of tends to start there. Mason Mount is just not fit. We have a number 10 going to the African Cup of Nations as well. Bruno is going to play 8, so we can't let him go. He's 6'4", and I agree with you. The poor lad, he is in a limbo state now. If I was him, as much as I think that he should stay, because look, he signed a contract, whether he likes it or not. He's got no say here, right? But in terms of the player and the mentality and the impact of the club, I think that he needs to go. I would be walking into that club if I was him and say, look, you've not played me. I've played the equivalent of one game in the last 11 games. You're not going to use me. There is a World Cup. As we know now, these players prefer club over country. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go and strike, but I'm demanding a move. I'm not going to demand anything else. You've not played me. Why should I stick around? And it goes against what I believe. It goes against, these players have signed a contract. They should be ready at any time. But if we're not going to play, if we're not going to play this lad, I think it's beneficial to all. You let him go out on loan, and you go and let him play games. So I think I wouldn't rule it out. The club, the rhetoric coming out from the club is that he stays. Kobe Mainoo as well. We can talk a little bit about him as well. Napoli want him as well. I think that the fact that you've got a couple of old players there, Rasmus Højlund, McTominay, we seem to be their feeder club. So Kobbie Mainoo for me is the one that I think if we can get him into the team and we can get him playing, I think he's the one that I would probably keep. Zirkzee, it's difficult. It's difficult. If we don't sign a replacement for a Zirkzee and or a Mainoo, and we need centre midfielders, if we leave ourselves light and there's no plan in place, we'll all be complaining and moaning the fact that our squad is light. So I think the intention is not to let these players go unless we can do something and unless an opportunity. I'm still of the opinion that Conor Gallagher comes in on loan, and I think that Zirkzee and Mainoo remain. And I think, again, from the club, the messaging will be there's no value in the market. I don't think we get our CMs in. Additionally, we need to think about this, as we spoke about, we don't have that much money. I know there is a rhetoric going around that we've got 110, 120 million pounds to spend, but I don't see it. So I think, do we let Zirkzee go? I asked the chat that, do we let a Zirkzee go? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. Dino says, and when they are saying we need value for players, that in a way concerns me for what business will do. And there's actually 100 million to spend, or is it sell to buy? Dino, look, as we spoke about yesterday, I don't know if you were on the chat. Look, when we're talking about how much we can spend, so our loss was 36 million or 33 million. We have a ceiling at the moment of 105 mil. That is basically the upper limit of PSR of what we can spend. If we breach that, because we've made a loss over the last 3 years, if we go on to breach that, then the sanctions, that's fine. So our gap between the loss that we've made and the PSR is about 64 million pounds. Now, we know Ineos are run like a business, so they're going to leave themselves some room to maneuver if anything happens. So, you could say we could get a CM in, and pay 20 million pounds an instalment, which leaves us with about 46 million quid. But the problem with that is the players that we want now are going to be phenomenally expensive. So, jeez Louise. Let's do that. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I think unless we get players in, and I do think it is sell to buy. So I think that is where we are on that. Darkest Night says them both to Napoli on the condition that Napoli come to Old Trafford for a friendly. Has anyone thought that Amorim doesn't see him as the main CM, just a bit part player? With all these players we have linked, from my perspective, Amorim doesn't see him as the future. And Scott, I think you make a good point, right? There are people in this fan base like niche fan, and I'm not calling that opinion out, right? They say that Zirkzee's a baller. Now Zirkzee is this amazing player. Mainoo is this amazing player. He's the future. I think I've said before that I do think Mainoo could be the future. I think he could be, but we may have to accept that he's not. There are hundreds of players throughout the years that were touted as the next biggest thing. right? The next biggest player. We've had many youth players that have come through, and they're going to be the next big thing. We may have to accept that Kobbie Mainoo just may not be that player. There are players that rarely come through at an early age and go on to be the next big thing. You can say that Messi did it, Cristiano did it, Rooney did it. Yamal is potentially could do it, but again, he's going to have to navigate certain bits and pieces. It's very rare. So we may have to accept that Kobbie Mainoo just may not be that guy. We all hope he is. We all want him to be that, but we may just have to accept that Kobbie Mainoo is not that guy. So I think we need to watch this space. It's gonna be interesting. Look, the time for Kobbie Mainoo is now. The time for Kobbie Mainoo to start to show us what he's about is now. Kobbie Mainoo will get his chance. Kobbie Mainoo will get that chance. Ugarte is going to get that chance. We've got 10 games in less than a month. We've got 2 games a week. Casemiro's not going to be able to play. Look, these players are going to get their chance. So if Zirkzee doesn't play, if Mainoo doesn't play in these games, the writing is on the wall. But let's see what these guys can do. Nicky T says there have been a lot of opinions that Mainoo is not a midfielder. He is a 10. Rebecca Thomas says we need to keep these players and be patient till we're in Champions League. I know it's hard, but we need to be patient. We're making good strides. I think I'm happy to be patient. Rebecca, I don't think it's the fans that are impatient. Well, we're impatient for people to sign. I think the players are impatient. I think these players, Kobbie Mainoo, I don't think he's allowing himself to adapt. Beckham, give you an example. Beckham came through when he was 19, 20. He played in the squad for a couple of games, and then the very next season he was loaned out, right? Zirkzee came into the squad, played a bit part, for a season, wasn't great, and then sort of came through the next season and then got built up. It's these players that are not patient. Mainoo, I get it. But the problem is, again, I think it's this club over a country. I wonder, Rebecca, if it wasn't a World Cup year, I wonder how many of these players were clambering. I think Mainoo, if this was next year, I don't think Mainoo would batter. I don't think he would. I don't think Mainoo would be clambering to get out of the club. I don't think Zirkzee would be clambering out of this club. I think if we'd have been guaranteed, if we'd have been in Champions League, I guarantee these players wouldn't have wanted to leave the club either. So I just think that this World Cup is actually impeding the progress of these players, because ultimately I think that they're clambering to play in a tournament that doesn't mean to say that they will. Who's to say that Mainoo's going to get into the England squad? There are so many players ahead of him, and I wonder, Zirkzee as well. I wonder, even if they were playing, would they get into the England squad? I think they're clambering for something that possibly isn't there. And if Mainoo gets a move, who's to say that he's going to get in a Napoli side? He may get injured. He may not be the right fit there. So these players, I think you're right. I think these players, if they bide their time, I think they will get a look in. I think these next 10 games, I think they will get their chance. I also additionally think that towards the back end of the season, when we need these players as well, I think that is when they'll come into their own. And if they play well, look, they'll be here next season. So I think there's a combination here. Do I think Amorim rates these players? I don't know. There's an asterisk. There's a question mark there. We will find that out. And if he does and these players play, I think the patience should be there with these players as much as it will be with the fans. So Malick Fofana, let me get this. So I think that is where we are. So Fabrizio, let's get on to something away from Kobe Mainoo. Let me go through the chats first. I wonder how much Keno would be in his prime would be worth these days. I think he'd be worth easy 100 mil. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the fan think of players because we don't pick the squad. The manager does, and if he doesn't rate him, what Mainoo is doing to show Amorim what is needed to be in the squad. We do need a midfielder. I agree. Stephanie says "Wriggle Room" is a great expression. Sounds like one of my dance floors. Gives a wiggle. JB says, I think Simon Jordan is an absolute legend. He should be on the board making decisions. Interesting one there. Steve says, Zirkzee, another crap Dutch player, blagged into the country by Ten Hag's dodgy Dutch recruitment. Mainoo should rotate with Casemiro, says Mr. Freeze. Mainoo is not a defensive player. You guys may have a different opinion to that, but I just don't think that he is. Yes, I do change it. I hope Mainoo doesn't follow a similar route as Lingard. Great talents, just need to wait to see how this pans out. Funny how Luke Shaw is back for England. Luke Shaw shouldn't be getting into the United squad or England squad as he's past his best. Ugarte needs to pop in the shop window, 50% off. Buy yourself a Uruguay. They're plush and cuddly. FC Seoul. Shaw should retire with his blag injuries. Players are brands now, need the attention. They do. So look, I do agree with you on that. I think you watch Luke Shaw next season drop off a cliff. Luke Shaw next season will drop off a cliff. He'll have 2 years left. So this is my prediction, right? I'm going to predict it now. 2.5, well, a year and a half ahead, right? This is what Luke Shaw will do. Luke Shaw's got 2.5 years, I think, on his deal left. It's a World Cup year. He's playing out of his skin, right? He'll be fine. Next season, he'll fall off a cliff completely. The season after, he'll be into the last year of a deal, and you watch, he'll play out of his skin again. Mr. said, I think Bastian Schweinsteiger should come back and help Mainoo and join the training sessions alongside Casemiro. Mr. Freeze, look, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about Schweinsteiger's coaching qualification. I don't know. It'd be interesting. To bloody hell. Somebody sent me a message there. So yeah, just tell me, because I don't know anything about his coaching qualifications. Now, I don't prescribe to this ex-player sort of stuff. If he's a good coach, then fine. If he's not, I don't see what sort of Bastian Schweinsteiger is going to do. Mr. Freeze, Schweinsteiger is not a legend of the club at all. 100% not. And I know it's banter, but he's absolutely not. So look, Fabrizio Romano talking about. Fabrizio yesterday was talking, right, and basically saying that Amorim wants a skillful, fast, electric player, right? Trigger alert, he's a club legend. If you're telling me that Luke Shaw So yeah. So Fabrizio basically saying that look, United wanted a skillful, fast, electric player, right? That's what Amorim wants from this window. That's what Amorim wants, right? So most people, Mason Mount is Luke Shaw 2.0. Yeah, he is. The difference, the difference is obviously Mason Mount is younger. Luke Shaw got his. The one thing I will say about Luke Shaw is the saddest thing about that is he got injured when he was very very young. His leg broken. It was very very awful. I think that was against PSV, wasn't it? And that's not his fault. He was potentially, if you look at how he was despite the leg break, I think he could, and he at one point was probably one of the best players in the league in terms of the position that he played. I don't wish that upon anybody. It's not his fault, but sadly the injuries have caught up with him. Mason Mount, I don't know if that injury is ultimately a a sort of a family trait. Whether it's one of those hereditary things. But Mason Mount is he could potentially not play again. Another bad injury to Mason Mount, and that's it. He's done. So I just find it. I just the players that we've collected, injury-prone players. Luke Shaw. I don't class Luke Shaw as a sort of injury-prone on the basis that it's an hereditary thing. With Luke Shaw, it's an injury, and as you said there, I watched that game as well, and it was horrific. So that's not his fault, but his time comes. I hope when the Butcher comes back, I genuinely hope that he can be some sort of player that comes back. If not, then it needs to be sold. We can't keep hold of these players on past exploits. We can't keep these players on the fact that they used to be good. If these players are injured or injury prone as they are now, they need to go. Dinner says, JB, with Shesko out, does Amorim give OB a chance? No. I don't see it. I don't see it with him. I don't think he gets his chance. I think if Shesko's out for any length of time, I think he needs to go try to get a striker. I think sadly, OB needs a more experienced striker in front of him. I would put OB as would I even put him as a third choice? I would send OB out on loan. He's not ready. I think he's far from ready, and I think he needs playing time. I do. I think he needs to go play. So I don't think OB for me is a starter. I just don't. He's not shown me, and from what I've seen of him, he's not shown me anything that I would believe that he's one of these players that could come into the squad. I think he's 17, 18 now, who's going to come into the squad and be, like a Haaland, be like one of these 18-year-old superstar players. I just don't think he's that player. I just don't think he is. I think with game time, I think he could be, but he's certainly not a Rooney. He's certainly not one of those sorts of players. I could be wrong. I just don't think he is. So for me, I think that Cunha will play there. I think Zirkzee needs to be kept for that position as well. So, do you bring OB in as cover in that third choice, bring him into the squad, or do you send him out on loan? I think he should be sent out on loan. Scott says he plays Cunha up top. Obi need to go out on loan, maybe Leeds. Don't you think we lose creativity if we put Cunha up top? We miss that link with Cunha, isn't there? Yeah, Cunha's one of those players at the moment. I think Bruno Fernandes stifles Cunha. Cunha likes to play that, not necessarily that number 8 role, but he likes to get the ball in and around where Fernandes is. So because Fernandes positionally in number 8 is crap, he goes and occupies that number 10 when he's a number 8. And Cunha likes to pick up the ball in and around that number 10. But Bruno is there. So I think Bruno actually hinders Cunha. I think Bruno hinders so many different things in this squad. I think Cunha is a creative player. But I do agree with you. I think Cunha up front doesn't work. He's not that sort of player who's going to spin and run in behind a player. So look, Amorim at times he's putting round pegs in square holes. I get sometimes why it happens, but that's the coach on what he's decided to do. So Fabrizio Romano. Let me just look at his quote. What did Romano say? Romano said, Romano said, look, United are looking for a playful, skilled, fast player. Nick Carucci says, afternoon, JB and fellow members of the channel. I said, Neymar, Mr. Freeze. What are we saying? Is it me or has Cunha dropped off form, possibly because of the players around him? I think we should look at Neymar on loan ahead of the World Cup. Afternoon, JB. Afternoon, my friend. No, JB, great take on Bruno. His hindrance outweighs his help. And, Amorim for me is playing a version of survival football. He's using those experienced players to try to get them through, which I get. But if he wants Champions League football, he's going to have to do something different with this squad. And I think unless he does something with the Fernandes position, Cunha is going to suffer. So I think that's where we are. So look, Fabrizio Romano, as I've just said there, went to skillful, fast, electric play. Now, most people link that to Semenyo. Semenyo, for me, look, I think Semenyo is out of reach. I think he is. I don't understand why Amorim wants a fast, electric, skillful player. Where's he going to play him in that number 10? I don't know. Is he looking to get somebody in as a left wing back? Maybe that's what it is. Arsenal want him now as well. Look, Scott, I am with you. I am with you, my friend. I think that he goes to Liverpool. I think he goes to a Liverpool. I think that deal has been on the cards for a long time. I know people are looking at the deal. I know £65 million. Liverpool. We've been linked to the player. We don't have the funds. And this is what sort of bugs me a bit. Is that there were so many outlets quoting that we've got 110 mil to spend, 150 million pounds to spend. We don't. In terms of the ceiling that we've got, and in terms of what you can do when you buy players, you could argue we've got 120 million pounds, but this ownership will absolutely not spend and go to the ceiling of 64 million pounds. We need to sell to buy, but the targets are not there. Bournemouth are going to want 60 million up front. It's just something that we're not going to do. It's something that we're not going to do. I am convinced. I am ultimately convinced that Semenyo will go to a Liverpool, Arsenal. Look, opportunities will come and go, and I think as an opportunity to sign this player, I think will go. So I think the fact that Fabrizio is coming out and giving us a T. So who do I think that he's referring to? So Malick Fofana of Lyon. It could be him. Again, there are stories coming out where we're linked with him. He'd be another expensive player. I think around 47 million, something along those lines. I possibly think that this could be one that we are looking at. I think he fits Amorim's criteria of what he's looking for. I think it fits the criteria of Ineos, those young players with potential, to get them in before they become world stars. He is quick. He's a winger. 20 years old. He scored 11 goals, I think, the previous season. If you look at his sort of stats, and again, we can talk about those stats a bit. When we're looking at assisted goals, he's in 0.24 a game, 77th percentile. And when we talk about these percentiles, the higher the percentile, as you know, the better the player is. Not great at shot assists, but that's not what he does. In terms of progressive carries with the ball, 96%, so he's very good at that, at 5.93 per game. Take-ons, for a winger, his take-on is quite low, 27th percentile, 1 a game. His touches in the attacking penalty box are 5.68, puts him in the 80th percentile. Progressive passes with the ball, so passing to the, I'm guessing, crosses of the ball, passing up there, 12.15 a game in the 93rd percentile. Tackles, 1.69 a game, which is about the 80th percentile. So, he's a good tackler as well. So, look, when we're looking at a wing-back type of player, his tackling is very good. He's very good at progressive passing. He carries the ball extremely well. So, I think as an outside bet, Fofana, I think would be one I think to keep your eye on this window. I'm still adamant that we're not going to do much. My opinion may change when we get to the end of this month. I think when we get to the end of next month and we're going to have 10 games. I think when we've seen what we've got, it will give you an indication. Right now, I'm of this opinion that there's no value in the market, and that is where we're going to stay. I think another injury will actually determine that as well. But the problem with that, the more injuries that we get, the more the likes of Mainoo and Zirkzee will not be they can't go. So it's a fascinating time, I think, in terms of these players. I think as a fan base, again, we need to be careful of spin. Darkest Night says, I think United should have another look at Job Bellingham, captain the under 21, and looks like a unit these days. I think they are. I do. I think they are. I just don't think they're going to do it this month. I am still adamant that Gallagher is going to come in on loan. And I think unless a good opportunity presents itself, and I mean one that cannot be turned down, I think that's what we do. I think the Semenyo one, I think is all pie in the sky. Liverpool, the Guehi thing, we've been linked to him today. Look, that's just not going to happen. Liverpool buying in for him as well. So I think we need to be prepared. And I know, look, I'm not one for this overhyping and telling you what trying to tell you stuff, or trying to tell people to get things in for clicks, right? I have to be a logical person, and if you look at all of the breadcrumbs, you look at where we have been, where we are, it's all there. It's all there for you. It's all there for us to read. We go through it, and it's all there. So look, this is to sum up where I am today. I think Zirkzee and Mainoo right now, they don't want them to leave because I think we do need cover in the squad, irrespective of what they want, irrespective of what they need. They've signed a contract. If we need them to play, and they will play, I think if Amorim wants them to go, they will go. But I think as of now, I think they stay. Malick Fofana, I think, is one to watch. Whether he comes in now, I think his age, his price, I think is not a bad price. The age, the position, the attributes that he has, I think that could serve us well as a wing-back position. Fabrizio talking about that as well. Semenyo is not coming. I'm adamant on that opinion that Semenyo will go to a Liverpool, Arsenal, and Guehi as well. So Ikaruchi says Job has massive potential to be good as his brother Jude, but can't be throwing tantrums whenever he doesn't agree with something. Job is Home Bargain's version of Jude. I think Job is the Timu Wish version of Jude Bellingham. So look, guys, that is the news so far. I will be back this evening with the evening show tonight. I will be back. Hopefully there will be some other sort of news to bring in as well tonight. If not, look, we'll just do what we sort of always do at an evening show. I'll bring in someone to talk about, and we can talk about stuff. So look, guys, thank you. Amazing show as always. Amorim's press conference will be tomorrow. The Spitball show, that sounds wrong, doesn't it? Evening show with a quiz. Now, do you know what, Ikaruchi? I've thought about that, but the problem with doing that is you've all got phones, right? So, I was thinking about that. I think I need to find a way to be able to do a quiz, but none of you lot can cheat. So I actually have been thinking about doing a members quiz, right? So let me try to set that up, because I actually think that will be quite fun, and I can be the question master. So look, there are ways to do it. Maybe I put a limit on the question, so you've got 10 seconds to answer the question. But we could use the polling system. But the problem with that is you can still cheat. So let's see what I mean. So look, guys, look, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Legends of the channel, thank you for being here as always. You guys are the originators. You guys are legends. If you need a DJ for the breaks, you know where I am. We could do, mate. We could open it up and have a massive party. The tripod system could use that Kahoot thing. Let me look it up. Because that would be cool. So let me look it up, see what it's like, and I'll bring it into the show because I think that would be cool. So look, I will be back this evening. Have a good rest of your morning, day, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Have a good one. I'll be back this evening. David comes in at the end. Yo, hope you're doing extremely well. David, you're going to have to watch this back, my friend, because I am going to have to go. But legend of the chat, and thank you for the comment. JB activated. JB is active. So yeah, guys, fantastic show again. Thank you for being here. As you know, I'm JB. This is the UDC. Who won Google? Exactly that. Take care. Speak soon. Big up to everyone in the chat. See you guys in a bit. Take care.